Howdy, how's it going? Welcome back, or howdy if you're new. Well, we are back with a follow-up video for all of the aftermarket backplates for the ROG Ally. We'll be comparing them all. In this video, we'll run a few tests, including synthetic benchmarks and gaming tests, both at 25 watt turbo on battery and 30 watt manual plugged in. This way, you'll get a good idea of what to expect. We'll also share some easy DIY free mods that will help you achieve the best temperatures and performance, regardless of which backplate you choose. Additionally, we'll cover a few quirks and features that I briefly mentioned in the prior video. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'll link it below or above for your viewing pleasure. I truly appreciate all the comments and feedback from the last video. To my surprise, I did notice some of you experienced a small issue, but fear not, I'll explain how to fix it and avoid it if it hasn't happened to you already. So, buckle up, strap in, or on, depending on your preference. You know, it's all love here. Let's dive right on in. First up, we have 3D Mark TimeSpy. TimeSpy is essentially a benchmark that provides several useful pieces of information, including CPU score, GPU score, and an overall score. We could dive deeper and explore boost clocks and more, but for today, let's keep it short and simple. I really don't want to overcomplicate things for the masses. All of the TimeSpy tests were conducted under the 30 watt turbo mode while plugged in, of course. CPU boost was disabled. Our setup includes a 2280 Gen 4 NVMe 2TB with an EK water block NVMe heatsink. Now, we are using a 2280 NVMe adapter instead of the 2230 stock drive. If you're curious about temperature differences between the two drives, we can dive deeper into that later as we continue, but you will definitely pick up information as you go. Continuing with our TimeSpy scores, we are tightly grouped together here, and honestly you won't notice a substantial difference. However, pay attention to the CPU score. The HandheldDIY yielded a slightly higher score due to significantly lower temperatures. Overall, the main score is quite similar, but keep in mind that my modified white stock backplate does enhance airflow, as I'll demonstrate shortly, so you will notice a much bigger improvement based on stock. Aside from the purple variant, which boosted a 200-point higher CPU score, there really wasn't much else to talk about here other than temps. Now let's dive into the temperatures. If we were using an unmodified white stock Ally backplate, the temperatures would exceed 80°C under the same conditions. The white stockish Ally peaked at 77°C, while the clear JSOX dropped temps by 2°C. However, the clear winner, HandheldDIY backplate, maintaining around a 72.5°C max temp. I averaged the results between 6 runs for each backplate. That way I know I have a good average and repeatable result. Shifting gears into gaming tests, we'll focus exclusively on Forza Horizon 5 for now. It's a game where I achieved repeatable results while keeping things straightforward and simple. All the Forza tests took place in the same map location, and I was driving around for approximately 10 minutes per scenario. I conducted 6 runs for each setup. I was using HW info to log all the temps, and that way you get a perfect representation of what you should expect. At the best case scenario anyways. Examining FPS, the differences, they're minimal with just a 1 to 2 FPS difference here. However, I want to reiterate, if we were comparing completely stock backplates, the gap would be more pronounced. Now, between the 25 watt turbo and the 30 watt manual, when it comes to averages, there's really not a huge difference, but the one difference that you're definitely going to see an improvement on is going to be temperatures, which you'll see on the next slide. Now, between the 25 watt turbo and the 30 watt gaming temps, you'll actually see a bigger gap in them than with TimeSpy. And as you can see, the white stockish setup APU temp on the 25 watt turbo, it averaged around 72°C. And these temps were all again averages and were not the highs nor the lows. There's about an 8°C difference between the white stock versus the purple on the CPU side at 25 watts and about a 3°C difference on the 30 watt manual mode. The gap closes on the manual mode because we're running with the fans at max speed, so we get maximum cooling potential so you can see its full capabilities with 100% fan speed. Lastly, we'll dive into NVMe temperatures. Here we observed a 5°C difference between the white and the purple DIY version. However, keep in mind, your experience will vary based upon your specific NVMe setup and cooler. Why? because each NVMe drive uses a different controller and different memory, and those result in unique behaviors. In fact, I recall on my stock Ally, 100% stock, I was seeing temperatures in the upper 40s and even low 50s for my NVMe drive before implementing a few easy mods. And the APU temp, of course, was much higher as well. And I want to reiterate, the only way you'll ever be able to see these NVMe temperatures that I speak of is using a program, something like Hardware Info or HW Info, and that will give you the sensors on all of the devices that are on your system. For example, CPU, GPU, NVMe drive, and more. And you can even see individual core temps and clock speeds as well. So it's a program I really think you guys should check out and should be keeping an eye on your system to give you a little bit better insight of what could be going on. Now, the NVMe temps between the 25 and 30 watt power levels were remarkably close, so I didn't list the temperatures for each. However, the gap could be much wider for you depending on your individual scenario and cooling capabilities, as I mentioned earlier. My goal was to provide you with the best case scenario regardless of which backplate you choose. So let's wrap it up with an overview and side-by-side comparison for all three backplates, and additionally I'll share some valuable tips and tricks to address the potential issues that you might encounter when using any aftermarket backplate and how to avoid them. All right, so we have all three backplate solutions on our desk. We have the JSOX clear backplate, we have the HandheldDIY clear purple backplate, and then we have the stock backplate. I'm going to show you the differences between the three. I'm also going to show you how I modded the stock one and made it significantly better within seconds. And then I'm going to show you this one right here and fitment and any of the quirks and features we mentioned earlier, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on the JSOX. So first, let's start with the main topic, which is the HandheldDIY backplate. Fitment. Fitment is perfect. I did read some comments, well, really just one comment actually, telling me they read something on Reddit. Never listen to people on Reddit. The fitment on these is perfect. I can actually leave this on for days with no screws in it at all, and it stays on perfectly on all corners in the middle. I do that intentionally because I like to see how well stuff is built and how it fits. If you have to force something down with screws, or when you put it on and it's bowing in the middle, there's a fitment issue. Now with that said, the one issue I will say is not an issue because it happens on every backplate is these buttons right here. Some people even had an issue with these, but we'll discuss that when we open it up. The backplate buttons. There is going to be a spring and a screw over that. Tension is everything. If it is too tight, it's not going to work. If you tighten it down and you start getting friction on it and you have to, no, you have gone way too far. You almost have to basically just finger tighten them without a screwdriver. These things are kind of finicky. You can get a little torque on it, but before you remove these, you need to feel how much torque is actually on them. You need to feel how far that spring is actually pressing down. And aftermarket buttons, they're always hit or miss. I've had them work sometimes, and then sometimes they just don't. I've 3D printed them. I've had some buttons where they'll work for a while and then they just completely stop working. The factory buttons are a little bit more reliable, but of course they're bulky, and some people accidentally press them while they're gaming like me, so I decided to forego them. Now, as far as the JSOX backplate on the exterior, some of the differences that you can see here is the honeycomb material, which gives it a little bit more strength. You've got these ridges inside of here that mimic the factory ridges. It's almost like a carbon copy of it, but just different colors. They changed a few things, but it is very strong. Now you notice here, this side has much bigger venting than this side over here, and even this one much bigger than even the JSOX. So the vents are going to allow more cool air in, more hot air out at the top. Cool air in, hot air out. Just how it works. The more cool air in, better. More cool air, better. It's all you need to know, okay? So with the JSOX, I like it, but there's just so many cosmetic things that I ended up not liking about it after a while. The slickness scratches a lot. It's really reflective. I don't particularly like it. The mesh grill in here looks extremely cheap, and I don't like that either. And then it leaves this weird shadow if you remove it. It looks very like quickly made. There's not much strength in here at all. It's odd. And then the RGB was wasteful. I couldn't use it with a 2280. And if you do manage to fit a 2280 under there, RIP to your drive, say a prayer, and you know, we'll keep it in our thoughts and prayers, because that thing is going to cook itself to death eventually. Don't say it's not. And I won't argue with you either. But look, let's open this up. But before, let's take one more look about this. Mesh is gone. This is the DIY free mod that I talked about earlier. What you need to do is peel off with your fingers. It's going to take a while. Peel off all this mesh that normally covers it. It's black, and even has like part of it blocked off. It's really dumb. Whoever made that, you know, really, I don't know what you were really going for, or if it was a mistake or what, but that actually causes higher temperatures and more airflow restriction. Removing this mesh alone drops anywhere between 3 to 5 C. So that's a completely free mod. It's free real estate. So if you want to do that, definitely go ahead. Now, opening up the inside, let's show you how this is set up. So right here, you can see there is a metal plate, and it's basically mesh. That works in tandem with the thermal pad that they included, which normally is a lot bigger, but I cut it because I have a 2280 drive in here. Now, the 2280 drive I'm using, like I said, it's the EK water block. I'm going to show you a little quick tip as well for installation of these 2280 drives. You'll basically need an adapter, but I put a rubber spacer underneath it to rise it up a little bit to keep it off of the back of this heatsink. Now, that does two things for me. That allows me to kind of like give a little bit of an air gap so they're not transferring heat from here to here or here to here. And then I could actually fit a reflective, heat reflective little material and a thermal pad under here. I used electrical tape and got it extremely tight, but you can use rubber bands, you can use some clips, it just really depends. But what you can't use is the stock bottom plate on most heat sinks. So if you're buying a pre-heat synced NVMe drive, you're going to have fitment issues. Now, if you've seen people making these fit, I want you to know something that they're not telling you. And you need to listen very, very carefully. This green little thing on the NVMe drive is called the PCB. It's the full length of the drive. That's basically the motherboard of the drive, okay? What you don't want to do, you don't want to bend these. And I'm going to tell you what happens when you install a NVMe drive with the bottom plate on, if it has a preheat sink on it. Now, if it's a raw drive with no heat sink or anything like that, it's going to fit fine, no issues. However, the bottom of the memory chips might touch this and it could short something out. So it's always good to put some type of protective layer on the bottom. But if you're fitting this in there and you're pushing it down, you might notice you have to put a little bit more force on some of these drives just because of the thickness of it, and that's not good. That's why I recommend using the little spacer. The little rubber spacer actually helps significantly make it where that NVMe drive does not bend at all. You don't see any bend on my drive, and I don't have to worry about it cracking. Now, over time, PCBs can crack, especially prolonged stress and heat, so you want that thing as flat as possible. And that's a pro tip for you. Now, as far as the other mod that I've done on my Allies, I did remove the black flap, which of course you have to for this kind of stuff. But the black flap that you'll see inside covering up all this is essentially just a dust shield. You need to remove it. That's going to drop a few degrees as well, and it's going to help make it cooler. Now, the next thing you'll see on here is these copper heat sinks. Don't waste your time. It didn't do anything. I just wanted to leave it on there because it's more of a pain to remove it. I don't think it's worth it. As far as the thermal pad that HandheldDIY gives you, you're going to want to cut it if you are using a 2280 mod, and you'll have to play around with the sizing of it, but basically just kind of like keep it like that. That way it clears this part up here. You can see I squished a little bit in there, which is fine. But like I said, the springs on these right here are really, really finicky. So spring tension and screw tension is key here. You're gonna have to play around with it. As far as these go, these can be as tight as basically like that. Just, you know, these two fingers right here, just do it like that. You don't want to tighten it down like that because you might crack it. but that's good enough. As long as they're not wobbling and you can't see it physically moving, that's how tight those need to be. Putting it back together, really straightforward. Everything works as intended. Don't need screws. You could just snap it back in place. If you want to put screws in there, cool, that's great. But you know, I would recommend it. But when you're putting these screws in here, what I would do is start this one first, come in here, start that one second, and when you get them in there again, just do like that and just get it pretty finger tight. And then do this one, this one, this one, and this one, and have them all even torque. If you're still having problems with the buttons, you've either tightened it too tight or not tight enough. So you play around with the tightness on those, and it should make a significant difference on your success rate with your buttons working perfectly. So it's not a design issue with HandheldDIY. They have no control over that. The variables they don't have control over is you. And that is one issue that, you know, you just have to mention. It's not an issue for them. It's a you issue. As they say, that's a you issue. Okay. So we've covered the differences between all three. It is a hands down recommendation for the HandheldDIY model. It's built better, it looks better. They offer it in 3 different colors, and it basically just is gonna set your Ally off. It's got a built-in kickstand. It's gonna hold the battery banks on the back. You can use it as a watch, as we've shown it prior. Put your little watch strap in here and you can use it as a watch. Don't do that, that was dumb. Yeah, honestly, HandheldDIY, thank you. I did pay for this with my own money, by the way. HandheldDIY was cool enough to offer to send 3 people of my choosing free backplates, which we did choose 3 people. We had basically a contest, and the contest is over. I'm sorry. We'll try to have some more contests in the future, but one of the perks of being a Discord member is you get a heads up way ahead of time of what I'm working on. You get to ask me questions, you get to share what you're working on, and just hang out with some really cool people. And if you were one of those lucky people to compete in the contest and you won one, definitely drop in the comments below. Let me know what you think about it. If you haven't received it already, I know I've gotten all the tracking numbers sent out to you guys, so you should be receiving them very soon if you haven't got them already. And I just want to say thank you, and I hope you enjoy. In the next contest, people in the Discord are definitely going to get a notification first, and then of course I'll post it on the YouTube, so it's fair and everyone has an opportunity and chance to enter that contest. There will be some type of things you'll have to do, so it's more of a skill-based contest, but I make it really easy, so don't worry. So if you have the notifications turned on for my shorts, my videos, and my channel, you know, hit that notification bell. That way you get notified anytime there is action on my channel, and you never know, might be one again soon. But look guys, I won't waste any more of your time. Thank you HandheldDIY for making a great backplate. You know, like I said, I did purchase this with my own money, so this is not a sponsored video. However, I do have to mention that they were kind enough to my community. Definitely share some love to HandheldDIY. Pick up one of these backplates. If you have any questions, drop them below, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hope you have a good afternoon, good evening, or good night.